Hey y'all, welcome back. This is the Brandy Yvonne channel. I'm Brandy Yvonne. Here on my channel, we do fun reviews, recaps, and discussions of all of our favorite shows. This particular video, we are talking on Saturday night show, Love and Marriage Huntsville. This is season. My back is itching. This is season 10, episode 6. I think it was titled Martell No Lies. I feel like they keep using the same titles over and over, just putting different names. Anyway, before we get into it, please don't hesitate to hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It's still a growing channel, so I would appreciate y'all support. Um, Share the video where you like to share your content and comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the episode. What did you think of the conversation between Martell and Maurice? Who's lying, who's not? We about to get into it. Anyway, so, and I don't think, side note, I know we're not getting a new Ready to Love next week. I'm not sure about Love and Marriage Huntsville. I'm going to assume that there will be no new Love and Marriage Huntsville next week anyway, either. I mean, it's Labor Day weekend. I know I got at least one thing I'm doing for sure. So that will work out for me. Plus, school starts this week for me. Pray for me, y'all. But it's time to get back to it. So yeah. So I didn't realize last week was the to be continued. I guess it was because we picked up where we left off with Nell and Tisha. Tisha has stormed off. Nell said she's gonna sit there and finish her coffee, and I don't blame her. Tisha came back because probably because the producer said, "Come on back to the scene, girl. What you doing?" So Tisha said that she's gonna come back. She came back because she really respects Miss Nell. Miss Nell was like, "I respect you too." She said, "Let me finish." I was like, "Girl, relax, Tisha, relax." Oh my lord, like Tisha don't have no middle. so, so she was like, as long as we could talk like adults and be respectful, you not raise your voice at me. And so Miss Nell's like, you're not gonna talk to me like you're, like I'm one of your kids. I'm not raising my voice. Now, Miss Nell never raised her voice. Last week she didn't, and this week and the rest of the scene, she never once raised her voice. Matter of fact, that was Miss Nell's quiet voice because we know Miss Nell can get very loud and rah rah rah. That was very much quiet tone for Miss Nell. So she did not raise her voice. I don't know what Tisha was talking. Like I don't know why in Tisha's mind it felt like she was yelling. But I think because Tisha can struggle with dealing with conflict sometimes. So sometimes someone can feel like they're yelling when th're not, right? So Tisha said, well, she did break down crying, saying like, she's just tired of everybody coming for her marriage, and it's always been all this stuff about her marriage, and she's just sick of it. They played a montage of different things, and so she started crying, um, and Miss Nell said it's okay, she understands, and um, she's okay. You're upset. I was in your husband's face, and I don't know if Tisha apologized or not. I don't remember, but Miss Nell's appreciated her being transparent and saying what it was, and Miss Nell gave her grace, and they met halfway. Then Miss Nell apologized for saying she was her mentor last season, and Tisha said they are building a relationship. And Miss Nell lets us know that she actually really is a mentor. She's a certified mentor and life coach. And so I was very surprised. So maybe that's why Miss Nell get mad when people say she not the mentor, because she really is a mentor. But we didn't know that last season. The only thing I knew is Melody introduced her and Chris Fletcher as her and Martell's mentors. That's the only mention I knew of Miss Nell being a mentor. But anywho, they worked it out, squashed it. All right. Speaking of Miss Nell, I'm gonna jump ahead just to get it out the way. Miss Nell and Chris Fletcher go to the toy store to get their grandbabies some toys. Chris wants to play with the toys. Miss Nell's getting annoyed. They talk about the conversation with Tisha, and how Miss Nell basically got a soft spot for her when she got upset, cried about, they're always coming for her marriage, yet there's no evidence for her marriage. Like she's not gonna, Tisha's not gonna leave Marceau over no concrete evidence. Mel had concrete evidence Martell was cheating even way before Ariana had the baby, and then when Ariana had the baby, that was product of the cheating. So Letitia hasn't gotten really concrete evidence like that. So I don't blame Letitia, for being upset and not wanting to, of course, I wouldn't tell her to leave her marriage off of allegations. No. She got other stuff she could leave her marriage for, but not for that. And I'm not trying to break up no one's marriage. What works for them works for them. So it is what it is. So, Miss Nell gave her grace, and Chris was like, oh, the interview Martell did wasn't enough evidence. See, Crispy said his little slick remarks. But then if you go back and check him on it, he not gonna cop to it. So whatever. So then she said that she would not be mentoring anybody else in this group ever again. So then they got on the topic with Lance and Destiny. Miss Nell feels like Lance does not owe Destiny an explanation or an apology or anything like that. And she feels like, okay, Destiny wasn't giving him none. And, he got to get it from somewhere, so he wouldn't got it from somewhere else. I mean, I guess we don't know if Destiny slept with Lance or not. We don't know that for sure. Does Lance owe Destiny a conversation? Maybe, yeah. I feel like they weren't that deep, and I feel like this is for a storyline, but whatever. I feel like a lot of the stuff on this show is for a storyline. Like, is it interesting? Yeah, but it's definitely off of storylines. And this show, they just kick up a bunch of dust. That's all they do. So, moving on. So, actually, the second scene we really did get was Kimmy and Maurice having a conversation. So, Maurice came to visit Kimmy in her office. And so, and if it's loud, y'all, my air is on. It's real hot in California today. Well, it's nighttime now, so the air could kick off, but that's all right. I can't get to it right now. So Maurice came to visit Kimmy in her office and say that he wanted to go have a conversation with Martell. He feels like he needs to check on Martell. He's spiraling, he used to not be this good guy. And so Kimmy feels like Maurice is basically wasting his time and energy having this conversation with Martell because he's tried to have all these conversations with Martell in the past. And they show a montage of clips of that. And he takes it in like, yeah, man, but then he doesn't really grow or learn from it. And Kimmy feels like they're not the ones to have the conversation with Martell. Now, Maurice shared in a comment in the confessional that Martell used to be like, this really good guy. The women really stuck up for Martell and would tell the husbands like they need to be more like Martell. Some Kimmy and like Letitia would say like you need to be more like Martell. Like Martell would step it up and cook and clean, take care of the kids. He did all this stuff and he was the good guy. And that's how Martell used to be. But now over the years, he's become more like the villain and he's not that guy anymore. And he's really changed. So, and I said, oh, that's really interesting. But you know what? People can be two things at once, right? You can be a cheater and a good dad at the same time, Now, does you cheating make you a good dad? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. That depends on how people see it, right? But I think Martell probably was doing, he was being a horrible husband to Melody, stepping out on her, but at the same time, he was playing that family man role because that's what he did. So Kimmy was like, oh, sorry, my eyes itching. Martell, he plays like he respects you and he listens to you, but he really does not. And he probably was looking for you to, like, get on Marcel more and take his side, but you, of course, you're going to be on Marcel's side. You're going to, backflip for Marcel. You're going to run for Marcel. You're going to do everything for Marcel, as he should. Marcel's his brother. Like, Martell shouldn't even have that expectation, in my opinion. Like, yeah, if your sibling is doing something they shouldn't be doing, you would obviously tell them, like, if they're wrong or right. But Maurice mainly want to talk to him about that interview with that little girl they did, that him and Coleslaw did. That's what Maurice want to talk about. That's the bottom line. And we're gonna get to that conversation. So Kimmy is saying that Martell, he was this good guy, and now Kimmy don't feel like he's a good guy anymore. Now remember, Kimmy always wrote for Martell, always said Martell was a nice guy, he's a good guy. Kimmy's done with it, probably because of that interview. Okay, because now it's affecting her and her household. When it was affecting Letitia and Marcel's household and not her household, she wasn't too bothered. But now that it's in her home, she is bothered. Okay. So she said, Martell, he was a good guy. He felt like y'all didn't deserve to be catered to and waited on by your wives and all that. And, he was such a good guy. Now his house fell apart and your guys' house is still intact. And he feels like that's unfair. And I believe that's very much true because we have seen over the years, ever since Martell got caught up doing what he was doing, he has tried to drag the Scott brothers, mainly Marceau, um, down with him and say, well, I was with them doing this and this and that and that. Now, is there truth to that? I don't know. I think they did say they went on a Vegas trip. I think Martell does know where some bones are buried. I think he does. I think he has exaggerated quite a bit of things as well. As also, he's still a liar. I'm not taking that from him. You could tell when Martell is lying. You could easily tell when Martell is lying. But when he was talking in that conversation with Maurice, he was not always. Some of the parts you could tell he's lying, and some of it I think he was telling the truth. But my thing is, he's, again, and I've said it many times, he's claimed to have all these receipts and evidence, and that yet when it's time to deliver, he doesn't fully deliver them. And then when he thinks he's delivering this grand receipt, when him and Coleslaw, aka Arion, do this interview with this girl they then pulled out of nowhere, it fell flat. It wasn't giving anything. Nobody believed it. Nobody took it seriously. So that's my thing with Martell. If you're going to, like, when we're asking you for the receipts, then bring the receipts. If they've made you so mad, they've pushed you, like, where are the real receipts, Martell? That's my thing with Martell, and why I can't fully believe him, because, like, if you claim you know where all the bodies are buried, bring them out, sir. Bring them out. Anyway, and maybe part of the reason why he hasn't brought them out is because of Letitia and Kimmy. Maybe. I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all that in the comments. It's complicated, right? So Kimmy's thing is like, I feel like you're wasting your time and your energy talking to Martell when you could be doing the stuff with Maurice Jr. that we've been asking you to do. She like, didn't we just have a conversation about your parenting, sir? Like, start spending time with your son and forget about Martell. And I agree with Kimmy. Anyway, moving on. Letitia and Marceau are at their house at Macy, and Letitia was putting some of their product in her hair, saying, since the girl be doing her edges, they should come in with an edge control with the hair care line. So and Letitia was trying to tell her, like, girl, you need to get on your social media tips so you can be making some money. You and your sister, y'all need to get on y'all marketing. Y'all be on social media more than me. So Marcel came in there, and so Marcel was like, you got to say it in a language she understands. Say, like, if you want some money, you got to start getting on this marketing thing so you can earn your own money from y'all's company. And so Letitia's like, well, you need to stop giving her the money and have her, work for the money. And so so then Marcel's like fooling around asking the daughter, like, okay, now who's your favorite parent now? So she was like, it's still mom. And so she was like, talk to me when you grow some hair. I was like, oh, I don't know how old that little girl is now. I'm assuming she's like a teenager or something. But man, she has gotten so big. Those kids, we've really watched them grow up. And then Marcel and Macy had a confessional together, which I thought was so cute. And she looks like both Marcel and Letitia to me. And she was saying that, like, Marcel used to be her favorite parent, but now, Letitia was right here, but now Letitia is her favorite parent. I don't know why they be talking favorite parents. Y'all need to stop. But yeah, she said call him bald and all that, and so he's like, she's just being sarcastic. It's, she's just messing with me. But the way she delivers it is the same way like Marceau delivers his jokes and stuff. So I was like, she is little Marceau through and through. The way she talks is just like Marceau. That's so funny. But I hope it don't, get her in trouble with her parents now, because it's gonna be a thin line between the joke and the not. But I thought it was a cool scene. I've seen some people on social media saying the little girl was disrespectful and all that. I didn't take it as disrespect because it was a clear understanding that the little girl was joking and Marcel was joking, Letitia was joking. Like, she wasn't like copying an attitude kind of thing. She was doing that teenager thing, like, oh, like just tired of her parents. It wasn't that. Like, now if she was saying it like derogatory towards him and they were at a serious discussion, then yeah, I would have been like, yeah, she need to not talk to her dad like that. But I didn't take it that way. But that's just me. And we're not in their household. Let's say that too. Anyway, moving on. Well, we are with these cameras, right? Anywho, so hold on. Okay. Um, moving on. We could get on to yeah, because we didn't cover everything. Okay, the meat of and potatoes of the dang episode is Maurice and Martell. So Maurice goes meet up with Martell. Martell already knows what it is because he's been waiting on, one of the Scott brothers to reach out to him since the reunion, or since he did that little backwoods interview with from that girl that's supposed to be Marcel's alleged mistress. Okay, where him and Ariana was coaching that girl on what to say. So Maurice is kind of shooting the breeze first, though, asking him how he's doing, what's going on. Martell lied about how he gonna marry Ariana. Anyway, so they were talking about, Maurice is like, I'm worried about your mental health, worried about how you're doing, and you did that interview, that wasn't, I don't understand, like, what's your problem with that, and it didn't just affect Marcel Letitia, and so Martell was like, well, I'm sorry you caught some strays, but I honestly didn't want to do that. That's not like me. I really didn't want to do that interview, but I feel like, Marcel and Letitia, they kept coming for me. So the reason why Martell even did it is because Letitia, mentioned about him being gay since college or something. That's the reason. That's what pushed him to do it. Now, I think he wanted to do it anyway. I don't think he was just so pushed against the wall and didn't want to do it. And he said he did a live beforehand saying he was going to do it, and he was hoping that would make Marcel reach out to him and apologize, but it didn't. Why would they no? Like, Martell, please. So anyway, Maurice asked, did the girl get paid for it? Martell said no. He was like, well, how do you know her? He's like, because I remember who she was from when we all went to Vegas when Marcel flew her out. So then they get, well, first, let me backtrack, because somehow they got on the topic of, Martell was saying that the other reason why Maurice caught the stray is because the last straw with him is when they were at the reunion, and Carlos kept drilling Martell about, was he found guilty or pled guilty, whatever it was for the case he has for harassing communications against Mel. So, and you remember when Carlos and everybody else was fed up because Martell kept saying he wasn't found guilty, but he was, or whatever the case was. And so Martell couldn't remember whatever the term was that they, I don't know if it was the appeal or the case that they put in a higher court before they saw the case even at the lower level, but he couldn't remember what the term was. And so basically Martell didn't like the fact that when Carlos was like getting on him and got up in his face, like, Martell, did you plead guilty? Did you plead guilty? And Martell was like, nah. And so he looked over at Maurice, and Maurice just looked straight ahead. So, but like, what did he want Maurice to do? It's not his case. Like, was he supposed to coach him? Was he supposed to like, what did he want him to do? I don't get it. So Maurice was like, I'll tell you why I did that. Martell's like, you ain't got to tell me. Maurice was like, no, let me tell you. He said, this case was not you against everyone else. It's you against the state of Alabama. So anything you say in a court, anything you say can be held against you in the court. And, the case, I think the case is still open, still going on. So Maurice said, I'm pretty sure your lawyer didn't say keep talking about it. I'm pretty sure he said say as less as possible, right? Martell's like, yeah, that's true. So I think, so that was Maurice's thinking, like, I'm not going to be helping, him implicate himself. So then Maurice started talking about his DUI case and saying, like, did you know about my DUI case? Did you know what happened? So he's like, nah, what happened? And so Maurice says they were all at Black, and him and Kimmy left Black together. He dropped Kimmy off at home. He went to catch up with LeBaric and JB. Where is LeBaric? And Uh, and then he went. No, she dropped him off at the office. I'm sorry, she dropped him off at his office. Then he went to catch up with LeBerica JB, and then he was like around the corner from the house about 30 minutes after Kimmy went to bed or something like that. And he ended up hitting a pole and a tree and animal. So Martell's cracking up at the story, and he was like, he sounded like my 9-year-old. So I was like, why is Martell laughing at this man hitting a tree and a pole and animal? I think it was the way Maurice was telling the story, because he was trying to make it sound so serious. But now, mind you, I don't remember hearing about him hitting a pole and a tree and an animal when this happened. I remember when that incident happened. It's last year around this time, right? But I don't remember him doing all that. Now, what I said on Twitter, aka the X, is this is the most clear-cut version of this story we have heard. Because last year, when it was brought up on the show, Maurice said none of these details. Kimmy gave some of them, but made it seem like we didn't know where Maurice was, and that she was surprised that he wasn't home yet, and she didn't know where he went. And that was a whole big topic of the show. And that just reminded me of how on this show, they like to kick up a bunch of dust and confusion and not give straight answers on anything to keep the storyline going. Okay. So I don't think they necessarily make up storylines for the show. I think things happen and they want to drag it out. So they don't ever give a straight answer. Marcel does it when it comes to his marriage, which I wish he wouldn't do, because it makes Letitia look stupid and makes him look like a cheater and a liar and the worst husband on television, right? Instead of making his wife feel secure in his marriage, Maurice does the same thing. He didn't used to do it as bad as he does now. Again, making Kimmy not feel secure in her marriage. The same thing with his DUI. It's like, oh, we're gonna, now I get it was a legal case, so Maurice couldn't technically say too much. But okay, now we're getting a straight story. Okay, whatever. And I believe this version of the story, because that made sense. The way he gave the timeline made sense. The way they were trying to explain it last year made no sense to me. Anyway, so Martell is laughing. Now, Maurice said in his confessional that he thinks that, Martell doesn't think it's funny to hit an animal, but that he's just trying to, mess with him. That's why he's laughing. No, he's laughing at you because he just wants to laugh at you. Sorry. Maurice, stop giving Martell so much credit. Please stop. So anyway, Maurice said he was found not guilty. The case, or the case was dismissed. I'm sorry. The case was dismissed. And because all the evidence, his story was correct and the evidence pointed in that direction, whatever. Okay. I thought the case was dismissed because of the breathalyzer thing. But anyway, if only Karen Huger had the luck Maurice had. Anyway, I saw somebody on Twitter was like, free Karen, and Maurice can get all free care. Anyway, so then so they were talking about the case, the whole DUI thing. So then somehow they got back on the Vegas thing. And so Maurice is saying, you've been the villain so long, I think you like to play the villain. And, you didn't just, get at me and Letitia, you also got at me and Kimmy with that. And so he was like, well, the girl said your name, not I didn't say your name. And so then Martell was like, well, Maurice is like, where did she get this from? What happened? How do you know? Basically Maurice is like, well, where'd you get this girl from to say that, I slept with her or something? He's like, I was there. And then he's like, we all went to Vegas together. And he's like, you trying to say we didn't go to Vegas together? Maurice is like, no, I'm not saying we didn't go to Vegas together. So there was a Vegas trip. So he's like, I'm just saying most of the stuff in that interview was not true. So I was like, well, what part is true, Maurice? And so then he was saying, Maurice is like, well, how do you know that what makes you say that I slept with this girl? And he was like, because I was there. And he was like, you were there in the room watching me have sex. So then he's like, and in the first part, I seen you, Marcel and her, and the young lady that Marcel flew out. slept with her, and then you slept with her. And so he was like, oh, Martell asked Maurice, like, did Marcel fly this lady out? Didn't Marcel fly this lady out? And so Maurice said, I don't know what Marcel did. Now I was like, that's telling. That's telling. Okay. So Maurice wasn't because if this is not true, you could have said no, Marcel didn't fly anyone out. That makes you look a little guilty. To me, that makes Maurice look a little guilty if he just said, I don't know what Marcel does or did. Because that means, instead of just saying, no, Marcel did not fly a lady out, like, what are you talking about? I don't know. Again, we're kicking up dust and confusion, or it's true. So, Martell's like getting frustrated with Maurice and saying, like, I was there, I was in the room for the first time. And so Maurice was like, okay, what did the carpet look like? What did the rug look like? He's like, he said, what did his thing look like? He's like, I got a specific thing going on with my stuff. So what did my junk look like? So then Martell's getting so comfortable. And he's like, man, let's change the trajectory of the conversation. Like, nah. And so Maurice is like, no, like none of this is true. And so they going back and forth, and then Martell's like, okay, well, sue us, sue me, sue her. Like, you a lawyer. If it's not true, then sue us. And so that's pretty much where the conversation ended. I don't know, y'all. Like, this stuff is foolishness. It's just foolishness at this point. Let me know what y'all think. Again, I think Martell knows some things. But he's just not credible, right? So it's also very hard to believe Martell, and I believe he does embellish some things, but I think he also knows a little bit. I think he knows a little something. I think he knows something. I think this is exactly what happened, and Kimmy and Maurice kind of spoke to it earlier in the episode. I think they all were involved in doing a little something, and Martell was, quote unquote, playing the best husband role, to the point where the other ladies is like, oh, Martell's a good man, Savannah. Oh, he take care of the kids. He do this and that. And Martell got caught up in his mess. And his marriage fell apart on the show. And their stuff didn't get blown up, whatever they were doing. And they were worse husbands in Martell's eyes. And so now he's kind of like... So then when Marcel makes fun of Martell for, the times he's made fun of him for his behavior when it comes to Mel and this whole situation of the cheating and all that, I think that's why it makes Martell trigger to do these things and lash out, because he feels like, okay, I was doing the same dirt with y'all, but my stuff got caught up and y'all still haven't got caught up, and y'all's marriages are together, and y'all were worse husbands than I was. But I mean, Martell, okay, let's just assume that the Scott brothers are cheating on their wives, or they cheat on their wives. Maybe they stopped once Martell got caught up, but whatever. Let's just assume all that, right? Martell, your stuff was in plain sight. Like, I don't understand. Like, you can't expect everyone, like, his mentality, and I feel like Mel's mentality was the same way. Like, if I go down, I'm taking everybody down with me. That's how it was. That's basically was the whole main issue of this show, really, right? I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. I think everybody just needs to like move on this show. Everybody needs to just move on. Anyway, then last thing we get is Maurice and Marcel and Kimmy meeting up, so Maurice can fill them in on the conversation with Martell. And so, Maurice said he's been really concerned about Martell, and he wanted to check on Martell's mental health. Marcel said F Martell's mental health. I was like, damn. So, he's telling them the play-by-play of the conversation, and how he was like saying, okay, what did my junk look like? And he's like, I have a very specific thing, anatomy. Like, what did it look like? And so Kimmy was drinking her drink. She's like, yeah, girl, he do. So Maurice is cracking up like, dude, you was crazy for that. And so He, Maurice is still concerned that, Martell, used to be this good guy, but now he's not. Kimmy was like, once he gets, mad and upset, this is how he does, and this is what he's gonna always do. Marcel feels like, he don't have nothing for him. There's no reconciling. We're reconciling with him. He's done with him. He does not have any interest in a relationship with him. He doesn't plan to talk to him. He's good. And so Maurice is having the guys get together, and we see it in the previews next week. And so he's like, okay, so are you not gonna come next, later this week to the guys get together? And he's like, oh no, I'm coming. But he not checking for Martell, but he's coming to the get together. So we're gonna see that next week. Because they showed it in the previews of, when Marcel pops up and Martell's there. I think they're probably just not gonna speak to each other, and which they shouldn't. Maurice said, no, Marcel said, all these damn M names, that he feels like Martell just wants a fight out of him. Like, he just wants to fight him. Like, that's the only thing that's gonna make him happy is to fight him. And Kimmy's like, well, we trying to avoid that. Yeah, I feel like all that stuff with them, this cast, I'm talking about the core people, is so deep rooted. Like, when they were talking about like how Martell used to be and how the wife said, I said, we're so much we don't know that has happened before the camera started rolling. And I do like when they let us in on those things, because it does kind of make it more interesting, and puts everything in more of a perspective, in my opinion. Yeah, so we're gonna see what happens. And Maurice was trying to tell Marcel you need to take a little bit of accountability, but I don't think he was that serious. I think Maurice needs to just let that relationship with Martell go, but maybe he's holding on to it because he doesn't want to keep Martell, in his pocket. Oh, side note, speaking of that, when Letitia and Marcel talked, they talked about Destiny, because they talked about the whole Miss Nail thing, and how she's certified to be a mentor, and he was like, certified crazy, and he was like, they let her be a mentor, because Letitia laughed about her being a mentor also in the confessional. And then they talked to, somehow she got on topic of Destiny, because she said, how they said they weren't being transparent, and her and Kimmy talked to Destiny about it, and Destiny's friends with Martell. So Marcel was like, yeah, you better watch your back with Destiny, because she's still friends with Martell, and maybe tell her, like, if the Scots come up, like, to change, that's off limits, and we don't need to have that conversation. Like, and my thing is, y'all can't tell. Now, I don't think they were necessarily trying to say Destiny couldn't be friends with Martell, but y'all can't tell Destiny how to do her relationship with Martell. I mean, y'all can ask her, but you can't ask her not to be friends with Martell. Like, that's what she want to do. I'm gonna give them the same energy I gave Mel all this time. The same way I used to say, Mel, it's not fair for Mel to expect everyone not to be Martell's friend all of a sudden. I'm gonna say the same thing. We can't. The Marcel and the teacher cannot expect Destiny not to be Martell's friend all of a sudden. Okay, we just can't. We just can't do that. That's just not right. That's not fair. She's known Martell longer. Now, is Martell a good friend for her to have? That's, we can debate that all day in the comments, but they can't, tell Destiny that. Now, it'd be nice if Destiny didn't, hopefully Destiny doesn't run things back between the two. But she didn't already tell Martell's business to Letitia and Kimmy, so there's that. Anyway, previews for the next episode look good, because Will knows Ariana, and he trained her at the house. Child, they're going to drag that on too. Anyway. Y'all let me know what y'all thought of the episode. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I'll talk to y'all again soon. Bye.